Les barrières sont physiques, elles sont aussi dans les têtes. Et la difficulté, c'est de vivre dans un monde qui nous rejette, un monde qui ne nous accepte pas tel qu'on est. C'est de finir même à force de vexation, de petites phrases, de malentendus, force de discrimination, par ne plus s'aimer soi-même. Et c'est la pire des situations que d'ériger un mur entre soi et soi. Heureusement, rien n'est inéluctable. On peut choisir une voie singulière, dans les marges, trouver une forme de liberté. Berlin est une ville qui incarne profondément cela. C'est peut-être pas un hasard justement si on y retrouve Joséphine et Amanda. Nous sommes 9 jeunes Européens vivant en France et en Allemagne. Il y a exactement 30 ans, un mur est tombé à Berlin, promesse de liberté et d'une Europe réconciliée. À cet idéal, nous avons voulu confronter la réalité. Y a-t-il encore des murs en Europe ? Quels sont-ils ? Comment vit-on avec les murs qui restent ? Pour répondre à ces questions, nous sommes allés à la rencontre de jeunes Européens qui nous ont parlé de leurs murs à eux. Le 3e épisode s'appelle Thinking in Boxes et c'est Joséphine qui présente.
Ich bin Amanda. Also Amanda ist mein normaler Name. Ich habe einen Drag-Namen, das ist Natak Ganymede. Ich komme aus Berlin.
Seit Wochen haben Amanda und ich schon versucht, uns zu treffen und jetzt ist es endlich soweit. Wir haben uns in einem Park in Berlin-Mitte getroffen. Es ist ein super heißer, schwüler Abend und ja, aber ich bin trotzdem total froh, dass es geklappt hat. Amanda ist nämlich sehr beschäftigt und muss auch während unseres Interviews an einem Nähprojekt für eine befreundete Drag Queen arbeiten. Amanda ist 22 und in Berlin aufgewachsen und macht gerade eine Ausbildung für Modedesign. Und Amanda und ich kennen uns über einen gemeinsamen Freund, der mir ihn empfohlen hat, weil er seine Geschichte sehr spannend findet. Amanda ist als Frau geboren worden, aber sieht sich selbst als non-binary und möchte gerne im Deutschen mit er angesprochen werden. Und weil eigentlich sein gesamter Alltag nur noch auf Englisch stattfindet, haben wir nach wenigen Minuten auch beschlossen, das Interview auf Englisch zu führen.
Dann würde ich einfach nochmal anfangen, wenn es okay ist. Wir machen, also den Teil kann man ja trotzdem verwenden, aber dann stellst du dich nochmal vor auf Englisch.
Okay, my name is Amanda. That's like my regular out of drag name. I'm also called Natak Ganymede when I'm in drag. I'm 22 years old. I'm from Berlin. English is a language that gives me more options for gender-neutral language. There's a gender-neutral pronoun, and not everything is always gendered. German doesn't do that. The pronouns are like you don't have a gender-neutral pronoun option, and also like every single words, like all nouns, like it's all gendered. Everything's gendered. Like I can't even talk about like a teacher without being like Lehrer und Lehrerin. Like there's always like the one option and the other option, and there's no neutral ever, or like barely ever, and it's like very, very hard to use any sort of gender-neutral language in German. And English gives me options for that, and I like that.
Als junger Mensch festzustellen, dass man anders ist als alle anderen, stelle ich mir schon schwierig genug vor. Aber sich dann noch nicht mal mehr mit seiner Muttersprache identifizieren zu können, ist schon ziemlich hart.
When was the first time you realized that you're kind of different?
When was the first time? I mean, the first time I remember like actively thinking about it, I was 12 or 13, I'm not sure. And I wasn't even like thinking about it by myself, but someone in school asked me, "Are you a lesbian?" And I was like thinking, I was like, I don't know. I can see myself maybe being bi or something. I'm not sure. And then everyone looked at me like a zoo animal, and then I was like, well, maybe I don't want to be that, and then kind of ignored it for a couple more years. And then when I was like 16, it kind of came back up again, and that's when I started, going through the whole process of like coming out to yourself, figuring it out, coming out to others, like figuring more out. And it's like a whole process, and coming out never ends. It's like a never-ending process of coming out to people.
Als ich zum ersten Mal gehört habe, dass Amanda queer und non-binary ist, wusste ich überhaupt nicht, was das genau bedeutet. Also auch die Abgrenzung zu anderen Geschlechtsidentitäten wie trans war mir nicht richtig klar und deswegen habe ich ihn einfach mal gefragt, was das für ihn bedeutet.
So queer is like a general term I use just for all of my identity really, but also like specifically for sexuality. Queer is the term I'm most comfortable with because if I try to explain my sexuality or put it in one word, it's not as easily possible, but queer gives you the idea I'm not straight, which is and leaves everything else quite open, which I like. Non-binary is about my gender identity. For me it means that I'm neither a man nor a woman, every non-binary person has a different or a different reason why the non-binary label fits for them. People like see it differently. For me specifically, it means I'm neither a man nor a woman.
Amanda und ich sind eigentlich zwei junge Menschen in Berlin, die beide ihre Sachen machen und in ihren 20ern sind. Und trotzdem, je länger wir uns unterhalten, desto mehr verspüre ich, dass da auch eine Mauer zwischen uns ist, für die keiner von uns beiden was kann eigentlich.
The obvious one is obviously, the one society imposes on you in terms of gender. I perceive that as a wall. And it's something that, once you become aware of it and you become aware of just how society views gender and like how rigid the structures are and how much people are just like, stuck in this like very, very binary thinking, it becomes like so like, it becomes like something that just like starts, it becomes so obvious and becomes something you see everywhere suddenly. Like how is everyone just perceiving all of this shit as like normal? And it makes no sense that people like make these two binary rigid categories and like put things in that box and in this box and like perceive like how they perceive bodies and gender and like how it becomes painful to watch at some point.
So I also thought about these concrete walls or barriers that could appear in your life, and I collected some questions I would like to ask you. So which gender is in your passport?
Which gender is my passport? It says F on it. F like failing at gender.
And how do you feel about it?
I hate it. I think gender is an absolutely useless thing to put on passports. There's no reason for it to be there. It should be taken out completely out of all of them.
Talking about toilets, which one do you use?
Both of them. I use, like if I'm in a situation where it feels like maybe not super safe to use the men's toilet, I use the women's toilet. Otherwise, I use whichever one is free. If there's a unisex one, I use that one.
Amanda scheint sich echt mit den Mauern in seinem Alltag arrangiert zu haben und glücklich zu sein. Aber im gleichen Moment habe ich das Gefühl, dass so diese Erklärung, was non-binary ist, dass er die schon ziemlich oft erzählen musste. Und es macht für mich auch total Sinn, dass er sich deshalb ein bisschen aus der Mainstream-Gesellschaft zurückgezogen hat.
So you're part of a group which is like a minority in our society. And how would you describe from this point of view our society?
Society as a whole, that's a big question. I do think I'm very lucky to be in Berlin specifically, because in Berlin it's actually possible, and there's very, very few places where it's possible to literally just like be in your little bubble, the queer bubble, and just like not interact that much with like the rest of everything. And that's kind of what I've been doing the past few years. I've been very little interaction with like, society, mainstream society. As much as I can avoid it, I just stay in the little queer bubble, and it's great. So going back into school now is actually like, one of the first times in the past few years where I've been surrounded by a lot of, normal society again. It's hard. It's very like when you've been surrounded by a lot of like, queer people who are like very politically aware, people who like, try not to be like, assholes towards any minority. And then you get back into like the normal, normal people, normal society, and it's like there's so much just like weird casual racism, casual homophobia, just like the way people talk about bodies is just so off to me. Like even like part of the lessons, we were talking about like proportions in school, like for like, clothing and stuff. I'm like, the way they talk about it, like the ideal female body, and it's like why?
And are there some like surprisingly good moments where someone acted really like in the way he or she should act? They should act.
I can see you're trying.
I'm trying. No, I really want to try.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, also during Pride, like same thing. I had my chest taped, and I had written on my body, I was like, I am not a woman, and like big letters. And when we were on our way to a party later, like at night, sort of, we were like in the bus, and I was like with my group of friends. Like I wasn't alone at any point. I was like always with my group of friends. And there was like an older woman in the bus, maybe like 40, 50-ish, like age-wise. And she like saw what was written on my chest, and she like very nicely asked, was like, so what is this? And like, what is this about? And she just asked like a couple like very respectful questions on this. And I was like, oh, that's nice. Thank you for telling me. And that was great. That was a great experience. I know I keep saying this, but the queer bubble is a thing, and in my head I see it as like a little bubble of sorts, you know, and you have like, you know, like when you're blowing bubbles, you know, and like this thin sheet that's just kind of like, you know, protects you, and within you're like, oh, this is nice, and there's rainbows and everything, it's great, and then the bubble pops, and it's like, oh no, cold harsh reality, why?
Amanda ist als Drag-King Natak Ganymede in Berlin unterwegs und tritt auch in Shows auf. Der Name ist eine Hommage an seinen ersten Besuch einer Drag-Show in Mumbai, als er 18 Jahre alt war. Natak heißt so viel wie Drama auf Hindi. Mit dem Namen tritt er seit 2 Jahren in Berlin auf, zum Beispiel zuletzt mit den Venus Boys beim Freddie Mercury Tribute im Schwutz in Berlin. In dem Video, das ihr gerade gehört habt, sieht man ihn mit Bart, Brusthaaren und einer schwarzen Perücke und ziemlich viel Make-up im Gesicht. Für das Make-up brauchte er mehrere Stunden, hat er mir erzählt.
Drag is just like an amazing queer art form where you can like express yourself however you want to. You can do on a stage whatever you want to do. And it just, you know, play with gender in whatever way you want to play with it. It really can be anything. Like in my experience, like it can be anything. I know drag queens, I know drag kings, I know drag performers and drag artists who just like don't fall into either of these categories. I know cis women, cis men, trans women, trans men, non-binary people, like all sorts of people. Literally everyone can do drag and does drag. And there's just like so much amazing shit that happens on stage, like on these stages. It's amazing. It's where, you know, I found, you know, friends and community. So to me it means a lot.
Am Ende wollte ich von Amanda gerne wissen, wie sich unsere Gesellschaft ändern müsste, damit er wieder mehr Kontakt zu ihr suchen würde. Aber eine einfache Antwort scheint es dafür nicht zu geben.
There's a bunch of things society should be more aware of, and I like, yeah, if I've had like the one opportunity, like knowing myself, I would overthink it for like a very long time. Like trying to keep it on like the subject that we've already been talking about. I'm like, be aware that there's like more than just like men and women on this planet, that like, you know, trans people exist. Just try to be like respectful of like how you address people and address them how they want to be addressed. And like if someone from like any sort of marginalized group tells you something, just like listen, you know, listen, think about it, because it's probably useful.
C'était le 3e épisode de Les Murs qui restent. L'histoire d'Amanda vous a été présentée par Joséphine. Vous trouverez tous les épisodes de ce podcast sur le site internet de l'Office franco-allemand pour la jeunesse et sur YouTube.